and I'd like to take a moment and thank them. For today's panel, our faculty moderator is going to be Professor Gring Pemble. And as a quick reminder, if you have any questions for the panelists, please put them in the chat. And if we run out of time, you can always email our office, and we're happy to help you out. So now I'm delighted to turn it over to Spencer Wood and introduce him from the Fairfax County Economic Development Authority. Thank you.
And Carrie, thank you so much. Everyone who's joined us today made time out of your busy schedule. Certainly grateful to have this conversation with you. As Carrie alluded to, we are proud to be your sponsor and be right front and center alongside you as a shining example in the community. Essentially just a little bit about what are we doing at the EDA. As many of you know, I'm sure, Fairfax County, the largest, most populous county in the Commonwealth. Really our mission and our charter is to help businesses start, expand, if they want to relocate to Fairfax County. That's where we come in and we sit at the table and find as many ways as possible to make that happen. Essentially chartered by the Commonwealth, the FCDA basically has a bunch of ways that we try to fulfill, grow, nurture, and take care of the commercial tax base. It's that tax base that really offers a lot of the opportunities that are funded by transportation, our roads, schools, and that sort of thing. Basically, what I want to talk to you about is just a little bit about our divisions internally, give you a sense of how we're structured. We have a national, international, and a national business diversity sections, all basically focused as the name state. A lot of also opportunities we offer are real estate and communications to make sure we amplify, promote, and help position companies' success stories in the county. Really recently, and I'm sure a lot of questions may come up about COVID, really since 2020, we have launched a third pillar that is really what differentiates us here in Northern Virginia and also in the region. It's our talent initiative. And I can get into that a little bit later, but essentially what we're trying to do is connect and promote a lot of the opportunities that a lot of you right now joining us today might be trying to figure out, hey, where do I find job openings? We have a website that I'd be happy to pass back to Carrie to be able to circulate with everyone. And really it spans the gamut from all sorts of different labor segments. And we're really pleased and proud to be able to promote that and make it as easy as one click to a website for you to be able to figure out what's available, whether 2 years or whether you be graduating in the spring. And then lastly, a lot of stuff that we've been working on is some studies we've been partnering with the county. A COVID-19 recovery plan that we just are looking to release soon. We just made public our Route 1 corridor feasibility study. Fantastic, because we know all areas in the county need to be worked on and have some great input from our boards of supervisors as well. And then lastly, affordable housing, something typically the EDA doesn't get into, but we also partnered with the county to make sure we are touching as many areas to make sure this recovery comes out bigger and better than where we were before. So I realize I went on a lot there and happy to answer more questions as we go. But I think, Lisa, maybe this is the time I pass this to you. Oh, and I think you're on mute.
I am on mute. I still haven't gotten the hang of the Zoom. I'm Lisa Gring Pemble. I serve as the co-executive director of our Business for a Better World Center. We really believe that business plays a leading role in affecting positive social and environmental change in addition to making... Followed by pound. Oh, something's happening. That was not me. Sorry. So I don't know what's happening there. But anyway, we believe that it's the role of business, not only to make a profit, which is really important, but also to serve society and the environment as well. And it's just a pleasure to be here today. And I am just going to encourage, well, first of all, thank you everybody who decided to come today and participate. This is really exciting. This is for you. So if you have questions, please put them in the chat box. I do have a whole bunch of questions, but my questions may not be what you most want to know. And we are delighted to be joined by a really awesome panel. And I'm going to let Spencer, I think you introduced yourself pretty well right there already. But I'd love to ask each person to introduce themselves and then also to just say what's most rewarding about what you do when you get to that. So Spencer, if you want to follow up your introduction by saying what's most rewarding, we'll then pass it to Joe and then go from there.
Absolutely. Thanks, Lisa. I think the biggest thing that really drives a lot of our passion is, this mantra of you save a job, you extend a job, you create a job, you save a household. And that's not hyperbole. That's not, light talk. it really is important, I think, especially with the backdrop of what we've been seeing over the last 12 months. That's probably the one driving factor, and also a sense of community stewardship, that we are active and out there and trying to constantly find inclusive ways to not only expand the tax base, but do it in an equitable and as equal possible ways for everyone to have a chance to succeed.
Fabulous. Joe.
Hi, I'm Joe Bracewell. I am currently chairman of a relatively new small bank in Fairfax County called TrustStar Bank. I'm originally from Texas, moved to Washington, D.C. in 1980, and have spent the bulk of my career in starting and managing and then ultimately selling small community banks. I'm also a lawyer and did spend about 10 years in the law business in the early part of the 2000s. I would say what I have found rewarding, I guess it's really on two fronts. On the kind of as an entrepreneur in the banking business and creating companies, there's a certain sense of pride in being able to grow a business, provide employment for people at the bank, and rewards for the shareholders ultimately when we've merged as part of the consolidation trend in the banking business. But also the banks I've been associated with have all been relatively small, what you'd call community banks. They're commercial banks, but they tend to focus on lending to small and medium-sized businesses, generally owner-operated businesses, and then related personal business for generally the owners or executives of those businesses. So a lot of variety in terms of the kinds of businesses that we've been able to help over the years in terms of financing them, sharing in helping people realize their own dreams by providing the capital to do that. I'm old enough where I've also been through some bad times, and that has been challenging and sad in some ways, because sometimes we've had to basically dismantle businesses that we helped start. But by and large, it's been very rewarding in terms of being able to help people and see their business grow. So I've enjoyed that very much, and I'm kind of semi-retired now, but I'm a board chairman of this small bank and an investor in it. And so I really enjoy that role at this point in my career. Is somebody else talking?
Yep. Anna, is that you going?
Yeah, I can go next. Hi, I'm Tuan Nguyen. I'm a senior associate at KPMG, and I work in our federal privacy practice. A little bit about me: I actually graduated back in 2015 from George Mason. And then the most rewarding thing I would say about what I do is working with the different people. Everyone I work with comes from a different background, different upbringing, and it's basically group projects on a daily basis. And it's a really dynamic scenario that I get to work in. And then from a client-facing front, every day a client brings different problems for you to solve, and they expect you to do these. And it's very rewarding to be able to solve this for your client and take care of all of their needs.
Fantastic. And I think that is our panel, our responses to that. And again, I'm going to start throwing out some questions. And students, if you have some, please don't hesitate to ask them. So Joe, you started off by talking about making a value for shareholders, which is, of course, a main tenet of business. But I'm wondering if the three of you, we're talking about business for a better world, what your views are on the role of business in meeting the needs of all stakeholders.
I'll kick that off. I think one of the, aside from shareholders in the banking business, the main stakeholders that we feel like we're being responsive to or need to be responsive to on a regular basis are our customers, our employees, and our regulators. Banking is a highly regulated business, so we interact with government agencies and on a regulatory basis. We don't, at least in the area of banking that I've been involved in, we're really not that affected by or have effect on things like the environment and that kind of thing. We don't own a lot of property and have influence that way, I think. But we have definitely tried to involve employees in ownership through stock programs at the banks, and whenever we've done a merger, tried to make sure the employees were protected to the extent possible in their careers. I think also something that doesn't get mentioned a lot is a real emphasis on integrity in business. And I think transparency and in the banking business, you're sort of required to have a level of transparency and integrity because it's a regulated business. But I think it goes beyond that. And one of the things that I've always felt was important in business is to really try to do the right thing, even if if you might shortcut somewhere and not get caught. I think it's really important to have a high sense of ethics and integrity. And I think that trickles down to being responsive to all of your stakeholders and following the golden rule, so to speak.
Great. Spencer, Tuan, do you want to add to that?
Tuan, would you like to go first? I'm happy to go as well. It doesn't.
Yeah, I think the question was how is or at least my firm building towards building a business for a better world?
Yep.
Yeah. So what we do is I think we're very committed, or at least from a firm perspective, on giving back to our communities. Being a global company, our community expands to a lot of different communities. So we do, unlike Joe's practice, we do own a lot of properties and lands. So one of the few things that we're doing, at least from an environmental perspective, is trying to reduce our carbon footprint using renewable energy, opening solar farms, and trying to offset the firm's energy consumption. And then directly with the community itself, I believe we're also trying to purchase as many books as we can, new books to eradicate childhood illiteracy in the communities that we operate in. So there's just a few initiatives that we're working on.
Awesome. Spencer.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, to summarize really quickly, I think it's about building and maintaining opportunity, possibilities, and ways to make sure that that's extended to everybody. What do I mean by that? Well, we work with commercial sectors, right? Headquarters, manufacturing entities and so forth. But our best use of the community dollars and being a steward for our county is best amplified through that sector, because the multiplier effect passes back greater windfall to the community. But it's not just about our commercial companies. We also are working with retail and other folks in the community, such as our work promoting the RISE grants that recently were sent out from the county, and making sure that we're inclusive with opportunities like this to talk with students about opportunities that are coming up, or if we need to be at the table for other regional zoning or planning that might be happening with another Fortune 500 company that wants to come to the area, asking them the right questions about how else do you think you could help improve and add to the momentum that we have been fostering and intentionally creating. I think it's a lot of theories and a lot of strategy that we can be practitioners and put in place, but I also think there's a lot of passion in our younger generations. I'm a millennial, I'm 36 years old, but I still feel that same appetite and hunger from students that are in college that we work with almost weekly in ways that we can get into if you're interested. But it's a lot of that it's not just about serving our commercial tax base. It's also making sure that there's opportunities we're communicating and also providing for everyone that wants to add to the opportunities and possibilities in the county.
Fantastic. That's fantastic. One of the things that So I've been at Mason for 20 years now, and one of the things that I love, and perhaps that I love more than anything about Mason, is our student population. We have an incredibly diverse student population. More than half our students identify as non-white. More than 40% are the first in their family to attend college, and more than a third are on Pell Grants. And we have a new president who has taken up the diversity and inclusion and belonging, creating a task force to see about ways that we as a university can sort of walk our talk and really be aligned with our commitment to diversity and inclusion. And I'm wondering if you can talk about the role of diversity in your workplaces. It doesn't matter to me who starts.
I'll start. I guess we've sort of got a little rotation going here. That has been a challenge, I would say, in my banking career, because all of the banks I've been associated with have been very small. And so, the hiring, sometimes is 0 or 1 or 2 in a year. And so we don't have a very large population to gauge diversity. It's pretty much a one-off hiring process. We certainly are conscious of equal opportunity and diversity, and we make efforts as best we can to do that in our hiring practices. One thing we have been, I think, successful at is in recruiting people for our board of directors for the bank. We have a pretty diverse board. We have 15 directors right now. I think 3 of them are women. One man is Asian, one is Hispanic, and one is Black. They're all investors in the bank, and they're all committed. But we've made a conscious effort to do that. And at the employee level, I think it's relatively diverse. I don't know the exact population, but it certainly, it's a diverse looking group when I go through the bank. But it's a challenge for a small business, I would say.
All right, I'll go next. From a firm's perspective, we obviously try to be as inclusive as possible to everyone, whether you're an employee, a client, or just anyone from the community. So what we've established is these networks. We have different networks, one for Asian Pacific Islanders. We have a network for African Americans. One is called No, I believe it's KPMG's network of women. And you can always come to these initiatives and networks, and they have different events to help really promote what they are, what they're about, and just shed light on different diverse topics. And more recently, this past year, we've opened up the idea of having more dialogue as to what specific events are happening around. So for instance, Black History Month, we get an email blast out saying what the cultural significance of that is, why it's celebrated. Same with the Lunar New Year, stuff like that, which is really good. It's just having that open dialogue and creating that culture of openness for everybody.
Spencer, you're up.
Yeah, I think both Joe and what Twan's talking about are fantastic examples. I'd love to complement some of that by talking about programs that we have going on. Karen Smaw, our diversity director of business diversity division, is really doing some excellent work. And everybody on this call, I'm sure you're getting a fantastic education, whether in your business schools or classes or whatever. But we also offer an E101 workshop, basically talks you and takes you through being an entrepreneur in Fairfax County, everything inclusive, including the Small Business Administration. What does it take to file taxes? What's the kind of conversations you need to have with the county, and understanding just the nuts and bolts of setting up your own company. I think also with our virtual career fairs that are free for our resident companies, that are paid for by county dollars, we have partnered with and continue to partner with Women in Technology, Hispanic chambers, HBCUs, and really a lot of other organizations to make sure not only are we hitting every single labor segment, but we're also not overlooking any key demo or any demographic in the county. We are the Fairfax County EDA, and we want to serve and be a part of every conversation we can and help everyone that we can. So I think the programs, would be a nice complement to what I think Joe and Tuan have talked about as well.
Fantastic. So yes, so thank you. I think the students here are getting, Mason has, and the School of Business has a really phenomenal program. And at the same time, one of the things that we as faculty members like to do is to reach out to people like you who are seeing the students and to make sure that they are getting the types of experiences and the education that they do need to be successful in what appears to be an even more rapidly changing global business environment. So I'm wondering, so I guess we'll start with our rotation of Joe first. If you could talk about some of the experiences or some of the skills that you think that our students really need to be competitive and have a leg up in this workforce.
I do think that skills are very important. And I mean, I was in sort of reading over the topics for the panel today. I mean, there was a lot of emphasis about, you know, how should you prepare yourself to affect positive change in the world? And I really think at the level of a student, somebody just coming out and entering the workforce, I think to prepare yourself for a career with the fundamentals, whether that's accounting, finance, marketing, you know, what particular skill interests you, and get into the, you know, into the business world, and then work hard and do a good job. So, I mean, I think that's very important starting out. In terms of the specific skills that I have found helpful, I've really spent my whole life pretty much engaged in the world of finance. So I found, you know, courses in finance, accounting, math, statistics, those all appeal to me, and I have found them to be very useful, you know, throughout my career. I would say when I went to graduate business school right after college, which is less common these days than it was back when I went. But one of the required areas of study in graduate business school was what we called organizational behavior, and it was sort of the feel-good stuff that somebody who's mathematically oriented like I am really didn't think was very important at the time. And I would say over my lifetime in business and being a business executive and managing people and motivating people, that is something that I have found to be critically important. It's been a constant study of mine to try to get better at it. It doesn't really come naturally for me as much as some people, but that's an area that I would continue to go back to. I mean, I think it's sometimes a little hard to relate to if you don't have a lot of experience in the workplace, but you know, every time you go to an airport or a train station, there are books on you know, how to manage people, or the 1-minute manager, you know, you can find them. And I would say just continuing education in the area of human relations, leadership, those kinds of things is not wasted and becomes more and more valuable as you progress in your career.
Tuan, you've been next in the rotation. Would you like to jump in?
Yeah, I can go next. As college students going straight into the workforce, I think a lot of the positions that you'll be joining, you'll be trained up upon on how to do your job. Beyond that, what's really important is to understand how to be efficient, understanding how to use Microsoft Office skills, not just the basics of programs, but understanding different functions and shortcuts, because you'll be using these a lot. And so the more you know about these, the more efficient you can be. And the most important, I think, is building up your soft skills. You're going to be entering a workplace or workforce where you work ideally with a lot of people, whether they are your coworkers or clients. And so the better at communicating that you are, the more effective that you'll be, that you'll find your career is going to be.
I think Tuan hit it right in the head. I hear this question loud and clear. I think coming with an attitude, regardless wherever you are, with an open mind and an interest to serve, because no one enters a job and hopes to have that same title in that job for the next 30 years. We're always looking to either expand our knowledge, to expand our influence, or help others gain, more capital, whether that's money or influence and that sort of thing. So I think certainly soft skills and communicating is humongous. It's not, I think, stressed enough, but I also think understanding different people, because a shared experience, while it's understandable and people can relate to it, not everybody's experience is the same. And if you understand where people, when they come to the workforce and work on projects, bring different points of mind, to problems that they're trying to solve, often an inclusive opportunity to really listen and try to find ways that would strengthen the problem solving is something I think that isn't exercised quite enough in today's business world. But I certainly hope with the ongoing conversations around equity and inclusivity, we start to move more in that direction.
Nice. So let's stay with this just a little bit. Some of the students are wondering about the role of internships and the extent to which things like internships or extracurriculars are important, or particular classes. So I guess we're getting more detailed here with some of these questions. So if you could talk, and Tuan, you're a recent graduate, so you might have some specific classes that you think really are important to take. Joe, Spencer, just some thoughts about the role of extracurriculars and specific classes and internships.
I guess I could go first, and I'm sure Tuan, you're gonna have a lot of great inside knowledge, man. You're a recent grad, but I think if you're using your time, and if time is your best asset, your best currency, find some extracurricular activities that add value, to what you're going to bring to the table, whatever job you want, and stay focused on that. It's very easy to become now, with a lot of the self-help or courses you could sign up for, even just scouring YouTube, how to become a better videographer, how to understand how to utilize your own social channels, whether that's Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, and understanding that each one of those have different means and uses of messages you can communicate. But really anything that is within your mission and what you're trying to do to achieve your goal, I think your time is going to be very well placed doing that.
Back to Lisa's question, I actually never had an internship, but I did have a lot of work experience, which I think was a positive. So don't get me wrong, I think an internship is a great experience. It allows you to see behind the scenes of that firm or company, what day-to-day, what it's like to work on different tasks, different teams. And it either allows you, one, to confirm that you're making the right career decision, or two, maybe realize that you don't like that field at all. And it gives you that hands-on interaction. With that being said, it's very important to understand what you want in your career, and an internship definitely helps to do that. As far as different courses, I believe there is an Excel course at Mason that all business students are required to take. I breezed by that class. I remember when I was sitting in that class, I was like, I'm never going to have to use Excel. And then here I find out that I don't know what I would do without Excel. So you definitely learn Excel, be very, very good at Excel. And there's also database classes that George Mason offers that you might want to take as well.
Yeah, I like Tuan, I never had an internship either, but I always had a summer job of some kind. And they usually had nothing to do with what I thought my career direction was. They tended to be more, manual labor. I worked on a tugboat one summer in the Mississippi River, things like that. But I would say what I learned from those really is, one, like Tuan mentioned, just having a job, learning what it's like to work, get up in the morning, be on time, all those sort of fundamental skills of working. And the other thing is getting to know people in all different walks of life. I mean, some of the experiences I had with my summer jobs put me in touch with people that I never would have met otherwise. And I have found that to be very valuable over the years, just to have an understanding of the way people's, attitudes, their way of thinking, the way they talk, those kind of things, I think, just help have an understanding of, particularly things that, what's happening in our country and the different points of view that, that people have in different, geographic areas and different industries and that sort of thing.
Yeah, jumping off of what Joe said, it's also very good to be able to practice interacting in a professional setting. I know a lot of you already have jobs, but it's something that if you haven't experienced it before, it takes a little time to get used to. So an internship is very positive in that regard.
Well, I love it because the comments that you all made really dovetail nicely with a lot of what these students, I'm sure, are learning in their business 103 and 303 classes on professional skills, the importance of networking, the importance of understanding diverse perspectives and being part of teams. And so thank you for reinforcing that. Another question. These students are going to be applying for jobs in the very near future. When you're reading a cover letter or a resume, what maybe some piece of advice that you could give to students about what are some of the top 2 or 3 things that like really stand out to you when you're evaluating a potential employer, and what are some things where you're just like, I can't believe people do this still, and avoid this at all costs?
I can start off with this one. One of the biggest, I guess, no-nos or pet peeves that I have, at least when we're going through resumes, is make sure you do a spell check. A lot of people just spell words wrong or their grammar is wrong. And maybe just because you're so intimately involved with your resume, you maybe pass it off to somebody else and have them proofread it. Another thing is the next step, if you get an interview, just understand that everything on your resume is fair game to be discussed. So make sure that if you put it on your resume, that you can talk through it very thoroughly.
I think that's spot on. And I also think too, if you deal or see an interview and an opportunity for a job as conducting a needs analysis and how you're bringing yourself to the table to further the mission or the goals of that organization, that company, or whatever task you're trying to be hired for, I think with that kind of approach, it's going to create more organic and natural kind of conversation. The inherent nervousness or maybe excitement mixed with a little bit uncertainty will probably be reduced a little bit, and your true self can shine, but also your knowledge, skills, and abilities will come through. It's important to, I think, present yourself well. Spell check is absolutely something I agree 100% on. And if I could maybe complement that, making sure your margins and alignments are correct as well. You don't want to have any hanging sentences or something. It's more aesthetic, sure. I mean, it doesn't take away from your experience of where you were or whatever example you're citing. But I think what it does prove or what it does communicate is that you can be pithy, you can get to a point really quickly, and then you can sit back and listen to what the response might be from the other side.
I would second the part about the spell checking and the margins and all that. And I think I would put that under the umbrella of you only get one chance to make a first impression. And if the first thing somebody sees, that resume or that cover letter, it needs to be perfect because they might have 20 other ones and yours might be in a stack and they don't have time to talk to 20 people. And, if there's misspelled words or it doesn't look right, I know that's might not be viewed as substantive, but it's an indicator that when you're going to do a job, you're going to do it with a sense of perfection. And I know, I'm a good bit older than everybody on this call. But, for me and other people, maybe in my generation, I think, a follow-up letter, a follow-up call, something, thank you for the opportunity to have the interview. Those kind of things are more in the category of what I would classify as good manners. But I think they make a difference. And even if somebody is more in the digital age, I don't think it hurts. to send someone a handwritten thank you note, for example.
If I may say, Lisa, also, I think what Joe mentions is great. There was, I think, a little bit of a disconnect, or not necessarily understanding what is a best practice. Say after an interview, I remember even 10 years ago, I would come out of an interview fired up, and I'm hoping I get a call back. But man, I want to do a written letter, but it's going to take 2 to 3 days to get there in the mail, and by that point, they might have, well, I don't know, interviewed maybe 15 other people. So I think a follow-up email is fantastic. I think it still drives the point, but I think there is something nice about a handwritten note as well. I think the answer to that kind of dilemma is if it was, say, on a Friday or something, and if you could come back and just drop it off with the person at the front of the office, that would suffice. But potentially leaving the envelope unsealed to show that there's no security issues, depending upon where you might be interviewing. For example, if some of you on this call would be interviewing on Capitol Hill, it wasn't too long ago that there was, aside from what happened in January, of course, but it wasn't too long ago where there were, agents, biological agents that were of strong concern as well. So it's really understanding the means of communicating and what I think the opportunity presents itself. But Joe, I'm glad you brought that up. I think both are really, they do a lot of great.
Regardless of how you do it, I think you're exhibiting a characteristic in the way you follow up with your interview. And I think a positive characteristic that most employers look for is follow through. Somebody's given you the courtesy of an interview, to follow up. A, thank them for their time, but B, let them know you want the job. I mean, if you just sort of go away and expect to hear, you may eventually hear back from them. I think in today's world, a lot of times you never hear back from them, which is very sad, because I think the manners thing is a two-way street. But I definitely think, follow up, courtesy and follow up are very important, I think.
That's terrific. And this is a great, oh my goodness, Carrie beat me to it. I was just going to say time to put a plug in for career services, because they will help you with your cover letter and with your resume. They provide extraordinary feedback. And Carrie Willigan has put an address, an email address in there to set up an appointment. I would encourage you all to do that, because I think, as one of our panelists said, sometimes you become so close to your resume or so close to your cover letter that you miss a really important mistake or error, and you just read over it quickly. And, if you can't be careful with where a period, a comma, or a particular letter of the alphabet goes, then how do they know that you can be as careful with the accounting and the budget numbers and the things like that? So encourage you to reach out to career services. Changing directions, as you anticipated, there were going to be some questions about COVID. Do you have any advice as students go out into this particular market for what they might do to prepare for being hired in a COVID market, or making themselves more attractive in a COVID market?
Yeah, I can start with this one. From an internship or new hire perspective, just understand that your first day is not going to be a traditional experience at all. There's going to be, if not all virtual, if not socially distanced. To better prepare yourself, there's a lot of new programs that at least us as a firm has started to use, new collaboration tools, for instance, Zoom, Skype, Teams. So understanding not intimately how to use all of those, but understanding how they work, what options you can use with them, and different collaboration tools on how to work as a team offline. So the more comfortable you are with working through that, the more effective you'll be.
That's totally agree. And I think the thing that most people agree on, whether that's a C-suite individual down to an entry-level position, being in an office creates collaboration and creates a sense of culture. And I think the one thing that working from home, while it's important and it's necessary, is we're seeing that, some CEOs are saying, man, I just feeling like our culture isn't quite where it was. If there's a way for you to meaningfully carve out 15, 20 minutes when you start a new job. Ask for coffee, whether that's a moment in their schedule or getting a chance to go out of your way to really get to understand how your colleagues work best. I think more than ever, that's a great time to really understand, hone in on that, and be considerate, because I think in the end product will be that much better.
I don't really have anything to add on this topic.
That's totally fine. Sorry, I muted myself by accident there. Spencer, you talked a little bit about this at the beginning. I don't know if you want to elaborate more on it as well, but if each of you could talk about how COVID has impacted your business and your organization, that would be particularly helpful. And then maybe if you can reflect on some of the hard choices that you've had to make. I know some of the students are probably familiar with the Business Roundtable statement, for example, where companies signed on during non-pandemic times to say, yes, the purpose of a business is to extend to people, planet, and prosperity, right? We're going to include all three of those. And then the pandemic came along and posed some really challenging choices, not only for large companies, but particularly for small and mid-sized businesses as well. So if you could just talk about the impact of COVID and some of the hard choices that you've had to negotiate or manage, that would be helpful.
Absolutely. I think everybody understands the impact, and it has just been, it's been tough. So I'd like to take this question in a way and frame it in a positive. One way that we have worked with the county is help promote and also work alongside with them with the RISE grants. Essentially, it's money. Fairfax County has never given incentives. Typically, what we do is have an infrastructure match for any company that might receive funds from the Commonwealth. But what we've been able to do, worked, pivoted, and found ways to streamline a lot of that message and make sure we could be instantaneous when we needed to be, get on the phone with businesses ranging from anywhere from a restaurant to, a tennis. I was on the phone with a tennis pro, and they employed 80 different other pros, 1099s, but still there were revenues that they needed to make sure that they saved, their businesses. That's one thing that we've done. How has it also impacted, a wide variety of our Fortune 500 companies down to the small businesses? I think a lot of rethinking of office space, flex space. Do they need more space? Some people are saying, well, we want more space. We want to re-sign leases and look at new places so we can spread out more. Some people are saying, actually, we want to reduce our footprint. So there is still a lot that's going to be, I think, determined over the next 6 to 12 months. But I think what we're hearing is there's going to be pent-up demand, not only just from people who want to get out on vacation, but I think also those who are feeling and really reassessing the places where they are right now, say maybe in California, and maybe if they want to come over here to the East Coast. We certainly would welcome them. But I think those are a few impacts that we're seeing with COVID and how we've been able to take care of our residents here in the county.
Yeah, I think when the pandemic hit, at first everyone realized it's a new world for all of us. So what happens? Everyone was initially excited to be working from home, realizing that our client needs still existed and everyone still had a job. But as the months dragged on, the firm really realized that it needed to start looking out for its employees. So what we started doing is introducing a lot of wellness initiatives, mental health workshops, tips and tricks for establishing a healthy work-life balance. So for instance, there's certain days where we don't have meetings, just to make sure that we can just contribute to our work. No meetings past Friday, setting aside a lunch period, just to give everyone a bit of clearer boundaries between work and home and setting those time aside. And we even have things like bi-weekly meditation and yoga classes just to make sure everyone is moving around and it's not all just work. So we want to be more than just a work as a firm.
At our little bank, in the beginning, when the COVID first hit, banks were considered an essential business. So we stayed open and basically reduced the staff so that people were essentially working half-time at home and half-time at the office and rotating. There's certain, we only have 41 employees in 3 locations. So, the staff is rather thin, and sometimes there's only a couple of people who know how to do a particular thing. So it was a little bit more challenging to juggle that, but but I think it's been okay so far. I think we've had 2 employees that have actually been infected with the COVID, so their offices had to be closed down for a week or 10 days or whatever. But they've gotten over it, and so that's good. In terms of our customers, it kind of had an interesting impact on us because our bank opened for business in July of 2019. So we had been up and running for about 6 months when this all happened, and the government program, the PPP program, you probably read about, which was a loan program targeted to small businesses. We really jumped on that as an opportunity to help people in, a lot of customers that we might have dealt with in a previous incarnation. And so we worked really hard and did a lot of these PPP loans. And as a result of that, it actually was a boost to our business because we gained customers that weren't already doing business with us because we were so new. So that was a positive. And the PPP program, the government paid fees to the banks that participated based on the amount of loans they originated. And so early on, we saw that we were going to have, it wasn't really a windfall, but it was because a lot of work went into it. But we had a lot of fees that we took in a short period of time. And so we decided that we would donate 10% of the fees that we took in to local area charities that were helping out the frontline healthcare workers and other people who were being adversely impacted by the pandemic. And so that was a nice outreach thing for us. We partnered with Inova Fairfax Hospital and the Washington Nationals, both of whom are organizations we have a relationship with to sort of leverage our commitment there. But so it's been a little bit of a mixed thing, I would say, for us. Challenging on the in terms of our employees and what they've had to deal with, but they've risen to the occasion, and it really has boosted the growth of the bank.
Great. So here's a question from some students who are, I think that the application process has changed since long ago when I was applying for internships and jobs and things like that. That you only had to apply to, a half a dozen and you got an interview or you were on the go. And in this particular environment, it seems to be about perseverance. And we're talking tens and, dozens and many dozens of applications. Are you seeing that with your businesses, your organizations, where people are just having to apply like over and over and over and over again?
I think we try to limit that, whereas every prospective student or per person that we recruit is only available to apply to one position with the firm. And it's pretty straightforward. I believe there's a website, a link that you apply through. I can post it in the chat for all the students, but it's pretty straightforward. I don't think we want to see the repetitive names over and over again. So we try to keep it as simple as possible.
I'm not a very good one to address that. As I said, we only have 41 employees. We don't have an internship program, and we rarely have positions available for people that have no experience whatsoever. We tend to, most of our, what I guess you'd call entry-level hires tend to be people who maybe worked for a larger bank in sort of a training program or something and are ready to move on to something different. That's not to say we don't do it, but we don't really have a formal program at all.
Yeah.
I think, through our talent initiative, what we've also done, and I would need to double check on the accuracy of this, everyone, but we have held internship and apprenticeship career fairs, meaning the supplier, would literally be everyone on this call and or anyone else in that audience. And the demand would obviously be from any, firms offering internships that we could get to enter into the fair. And again, it would be free. I need to double check and see if there's one planned again. And, Lisa, Carrie, I'd be happy to follow up with you, make that a opportunity available for everyone too.
Perfect. And so now we are slowly winding down our time. And so we may have a question but I want to make sure I get this one in there. Could you share with us something that you wish that you knew in college that you know now that you think would be really beneficial for the students to know? Like, I wish I knew this when I was in college.
Yeah, that's a good question. I think I can take this one. So going into, again, a professional setting, you're basically going to be working in group projects all the time. So in your group projects now, be comfortable in every role, be the lead, be the follower, be whatever, all these different positions in your group projects, be comfortable with all of them. Because once you get into the workforce, you're going to have to wear each one of those hats at least once. Whether it's from the planning stage or whether it's your project or you're just on someone else's project, just be comfortable with every position.
Great.
I would second that. And I mentioned earlier the human relations aspect of the workplace being very important. And as I said, I didn't put as much importance on that starting out as I've learned later in life. But also, when I was in undergraduate school, I wasn't as diligent a student as I learned to be later. So I would say 3 things I learned were do the reading, go to class, and take notes. And those I found to be pretty important by the time I got to law school.
That is great. I'm hearing some of the students just in the background. I can imagine them groaning about the comments, right? Because group projects, when you announce them, are invariably met with, right? Because there's always one person who does all of the work or does a lot of it and really wants to get an A. And there's always somebody who's like, I just want to skate by, like I just have to pass this class. And that always causes issues. And then Joe, your comment, I can hear the sighs, like, going to class, taking notes, like, yes, 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 I have to do all of that. So that's great. So Spencer, you're going to close us out here with your comment.
Yeah, I think the group project portion and contributing is spot on. I think another thing is I wish I had known how quickly really 9 to 5 moves. You really can, it scoots by really quickly, and that's a good thing if you're being productive. But I think also something of a more serious topic is college debt and the obligations that surround that increasingly every year. I don't know if I have the answer for that, but I think that is something that is certainly something we can't overlook, and something that is needing to be, I think, addressed, in some way to offer some sort of relief. So then that money then can be expanded, and we can all continue to moving up, in economic mobility.
That's great. And you mentioned something about 9 to 5, Spencer. So do you all feel like you have 9 to 5 jobs? Are they pretty regular daytime jobs, or do you have other, are you working at weird hours? What's the story?
I think you keep working until you get the job done or the project done. That's kind of, I guess, my attitude. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I don't find that I have too many obligations outside the work week. But what you want to do is if you want to excel at your job, there's going to be additional things that you want to take on. You want to know what the current events are, what other impacts that you might not know about yet. So I'll do a little reading here and there, but that's about the extent of it. It all depends on how much you want to invest in your career. And that is, I mean, right now you're investing a monetary in going to paying tuition, but it's also a big time investment when you get to that point.
I would add to that, whether it was in banking or my years in the law business, both of them, I think you could, and I'm sure Tuan's business as well as a service business, and you have clients and client needs need to be taken care of. And many times you are doing these in groups. And so I think, when you need to respond to the client and you need to do it with a group, you find yourself a lot of times having to make compromises in order to be able to meet that schedule. And I mean, I don't think I experienced the difficulty with that quite so much, but my daughter, who's also a lawyer and was with a large law firm, she found that after she had children, even though the firm was very accommodating to women with children and the, work environment and family friendly policies and so forth. She found it very difficult when there was an important meeting that had to take place at a certain time. And she was faced with the choice of either being in that meeting. She wasn't required to be in the meeting, but career-wise, it was important that she be in the meeting. And I think that's a real challenge. And I don't have the answer for it, other than to just say that I think that is a challenge that probably is faced more by working mothers than any other category of people, but it's something to just be aware of.
Yeah, as a working mother, I really that resonates with me. I don't know if any of you have any comments that you want to make about that and workplace flexibility, or what, any comments on that would be welcome.
I guess my only comment would be what the employer says about flexibility is probably true. They're probably mean it and they're probably trying to do it. But when you have clients who are demanding service, oftentimes the firm is not willing to say to the client, well, we can't meet today because one of our key team members, is off today, but will be here tomorrow. It's just not the answer you usually want to give to your customer. And I think that's the tension. I'm not saying that one is right or wrong, but you'll find employers who will say all the right things and they'll mean it. But when it comes to the practicality in the service business, the customer is king.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, we are at 3:00. Spencer, Joe, Tuan, thank you very much for joining us. Thank you to everybody who joined us and asked questions. Really appreciate your time, and hoping that everybody has a chance to get outside. If you are in Northern Virginia, we finally have sun and warm weather. So get out and enjoy it if you have that opportunity. But thank you so much, panel. This was amazing. Thank you. Really appreciate it.
Thank you, everyone, for participating.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
All right. Have a
Thanks.
good one.
Okay, bye.
Right. Bye-bye.